Welcome, dear listeners, to Satanists Nextdoor. We're your hosts, Lillian Levine.
And Tommy Levine.
Whether you're an open-minded, curious onlooker or a fellow Satanist seeking camaraderie, our goal is to share our personal experiences and delve into the intricate tapestry of Satanism in our daily lives, occasionally inviting other guests to share their unique perspectives, leaving no pentagram unturned. We'll explore how our beliefs shape our views on society, dive into struggles and triumphs we've encountered, and reveal the humanity that unites us all. So grab your favorite chalice and join us on this captivating journey. Satanist Nextdoor is ready to peel back the curtain and offer you a glimpse into our world, one captivating episode at a time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Satanist Nextdoor. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about toxic masculinity. That subject just kind of like makes my skin crawl. It's just...
Well, and I think it's something that we've begun to see pushed a lot more as of late. Not that it hasn't existed for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, it's existed for a long time, but it feels like for a while it was going away.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you still found it in these small, I say small, but at the time, like in the 90s and stuff like that, those small evangelical circles. Back when the evangelicals were like considered the crazy sort of outcast Christians, you know, they're no longer considered that anymore, unfortunately. They're more mainstream. But really has picked up a lot of speed lately, and that's...
Well, and I think it's tied to a lot of the different rhetoric that we see, because toxic masculinity, even back to, you know, Leave It to Beaver, these kind of notions about what a man is supposed to be in society, in kind of these traditional masculine roles or hegemonic expectations that are put out there, whatever's popular with current culture. It's so bad for men. Yeah. And it's horrible for women, but it's so horrible for men.
Yeah. I mean, you get everything from boys will be boys, that sort of shit. But it's like now you see men bragging about, like when I'm on social media and I see somebody that their social profile says alpha male in the title, I'm almost like just immediately block, because it's like there is no point that this person has, and like we've talked about this quite a few times too. The term alpha, we come from a software world, and it's like, alpha is your most unstable. It's not set for the general public. It's got security holes. It's never supposed to be released or used in production. So I kind of chuckle when I see these boys, or men presenting themselves as I'm an alpha man, and I'm like, as a software development life cycle, that really makes you pretty damn weak.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And then what is the term? They try and go after men, if men have feelings and stuff like that, they call them like the betas, yeah. And it's like, well, hell, I mean, betas are at least more stable than alpha releases, I mean, betas, you have a chance that it could be, an MVP and actually, be launched with,
Well, it's like a recycled mentality, though. It's several decades old, actually, toxic masculinity. I believe it was the late 20th century when there was like more of the men's movement. A lot of people talk about the women's movement, but the men's movement, and not necessarily in the bad way. Like, masculinity in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's not bad to be masculine.
No.
The bad aspects of masculinity are when you start saying things about how men shouldn't cry, or, if you're a learned person, then you're, a bookworm or a nerd, and, it starts to take away the traits of everybody. Men and women alike have a lot of similar traits, but then, you have things that are more masculinely defined that are just in line with people of a male persuasion.
Well, yeah, I mean, I see it everywhere from, nowadays it is very possible that a couple has a child and a woman has a more secure and well-paying job than the man, and the man stays home. You know, if they decide as a couple, again, this is all things that as partnerships, you kind of talk about and decide as a couple if they want somebody to stay home and be a stay-at-home parent. But for some reason, then these men that do that are like, neutered according to these people. And that's just so fucked up. It's like, no, it makes the most sense, and I think some men still to this day, and I absolutely do not understand this mindset, that if their partner is more successful than them, they feel inadequate or they feel emasculated. And I was always like, I remember we've been married for a very long time, so I was always like, hell, if you get a job and make more money than me, I'll gladly stay home. I have no problems with that. I'll stay home with the kids or whatnot. So I never understood that way of thinking, that it's just but I think when you look at satanic ideology versus the Christian or Abrahamic religion ideology, Abrahamic religions, they preach over and over again how the man is the provider and, you are in charge of the family and you're failing your family.
The Godhead.
All that sort of shit. Whereas satanic ideology, we celebrate the person, and your success as a woman, your success should be celebrated by you and by me. And you have bodily autonomy, there is no ownership. That's the other thing you see in the Abrahamic religions a lot, is this weird sort of ownership of women. You get married and all of a sudden your wife is your property.
Right.
And that's just...
It's gross. But bodily autonomy is something that's afforded to both of us. And I think one of the things I like about less Abrahamic faith type based relationship, what I prefer outside of that is there's an opportunity for people to celebrate themselves, but also to celebrate each other. You have gaps in your thinking or your skills or things like that, just like I do. And the beauty of a relationship is to find out where you can fill one another's gaps or complement one another's strengths. And you can do that regardless of traditional roles.
Yeah. No, I think, again, I'm going to brag a little bit about the way that we've been able to, we've been married for a long time, 25 years, but I think we've been able to do a very good job of complementing each other.
Right.
Now it took some time to figure that out.
And natural challenges and, difficulties and learning how to listen to one another.
But definitely there are areas where we complement each other.
And for sure.
And I can think of one right off the top of my head, because we joke about this all the time, is empathy and compassion.
Yep.
You have like enough empathy and compassion for like 2 households full of people.
You're not supposed to brag about that one out loud, but
and like, I don't have as much empathy and compassion. Now that's not a bad thing. It's just my personality, but I think together we balance each other out really well with that, because you're able to be like, hey, you're being a bit of an asshole,
Yeah.
And then I'm able to say, hey, I think, maybe
that could be a little over the top.
That's a little over the top. You might want to,
balance it out a little.
Balance that out, but that's just one example though. And again, it's because we don't have a relationship where there's ownership. It's not, I'm in charge, I'm the man, I'm in charge of all the decisions of the house, and you all will do what I say and blah blah blah. And that's just so toxic.
We've even heard like the crazier examples. One of my kids was telling me at their friend's house, the dad decides what they're eating. So, normally you're like, hey, kids, we're going to get some out to eat. What do you guys want today?
Oh, yeah, when they go out to eat.
Yeah, but like in her friend's house, it was, You know, the dad picks where they're going to be eating from, what food they're all going to get, and then they just get what the dad picks. I was like, that seems kind of screwed up.
That's pretty fucked up. I mean, you go out to eat and your dad's picking everybody's food. I mean, it's like, what in the hell is that? You don't have choice. I mean, even as a child, I mean, like, I think the only thing I've ever said to our children when we've gone out to eat was,
maybe not the $100 lobster.
Yeah, not the $100 lobster. And I know it's only one child. I have to say that too.
Well, anyway, no, and a lot of times it's really more of a joke because we've raised our kids to be sensible human beings. It's like, okay, within reason, look at these options and pick something reasonable. You know?
Yeah, as long as you're going to eat it, then that's fine. And even if for some reason you get it and you don't like it, I'm not going to force you to eat something you don't like. You know, if you went out on a limb and you tried something, good for you. You're supposed to do that. And, you know, I want to reinforce that in my daughters too. And so even as we've raised our daughters, I've, you know, really tried to make sure that they understand that this toxic masculinity shit out there just doesn't fly. Don't get in relationship with guys. These are the warning signs. Have your own boundaries. You know, you speak for you. And if at any time you feel like you're, you know, being treated in a certain way, you should probably think about, is this the best relationship for you? And I think, fingers crossed, I think we've done a good job of that. And we've seen it firsthand. In one of our daughter's relationships where she was like, no, this is not a good relationship, you know? And I was, as a dad, I was kind of proud of that because I'm like, okay, cool. I raised children. I raised daughters to know.
Yeah, I mean, we gave them the tools and then they were able to implement it real time and you were able to watch that happen. It's great to see that. It also sucks though, regardless, right? When you see the negative things happen, you're like, this sucks. But then you see them stand up for themselves or do what they need to for their health and set boundaries and be healthy. You're proud of that. It's just, yeah, I wish they didn't have to deal with some of the shit to get there.
Yeah, and I'll say that was probably one of the biggest challenges for me was, you know, when I saw something going on in my daughter's relationship, as dad, I want to step in, you know, but I can't do that. You know, obviously, if it got to a point of violence,
oh, for sure,
I'd step in and the person would learn how to fly out the second story window. But, you know, you have to kind of sit back and say, okay, I have to let her take care of this, knowing that she has a safety net.
Right.
You
like
know,
we're on the sidelines.
Right. I mean, I've always had the rules with our daughters that at any time, any day, it doesn't matter if it's 3 a.m, if they're in a bind, they can call me and there will be no questions asked. You know, I will come get them. I will do whatever, you know, what do they need? And, you know, I think, at least it sounds like the feedback I've gotten is that helps them feel secure in a way. But yeah, I mean, but you have a whole world full of all of these asshole toxic men. I mean, you've got Andrew Tate and his brother. I mean, those two assholes, you know. I
don't think that's the worst case scenario of toxic masculinity. I think
maybe I don't even know if that's the worst case scenario. I mean,
one of the worst case scenarios.
But, you know, definitely
but it's
asshole.
Like, I just want to be clear to say there's nothing toxic about being masculine.
No.
About celebrating manly things.
No.
Or celebrating yourself as a man. It begins to get toxic when you start blurring the lines between being overly aggressive, not being able to express your emotions. And this is something on women too. I'm going to be quick to call it out. When you're looking at a guy and you're like, man up, or, you know, yelling things like that at them for having emotions, you're making the situation worse. You're feeding into this very unhealthy mentality as a mother or as a wife or as a sibling. When you yell at a man for being emotional, you're only helping to exaggerate the situation.
Yeah, we've seen that before. It was somebody we knew at some time who made a comment about how, like, the man she was with, you know, oh, he got emotional about this, and I was like, oh, you need to, it wasn't even a friend, it was like an acquaintance or just something like that. You need to just man up. And it was like, okay, hold on. You are now perpetuating a horrible toxicity that, you know, ideally we want to work out of men. You know, yes, it is okay as a man to be emotional.
Right.
You know, do you really want your partner to be a complete unemotional asshole? I mean, that's what you're looking for in order to say, I've got a real man. You know, I mean, I don't know. I get confused with that.
I don't know. That was one that always pissed me off. Or, you know, the other negative things I've seen women do, where you've been helping me with stuff around the house, which is a thing you've always done forever. And they're like, oh, how did you get him to do that? But what do you mean? Like, he just does that. Well, yeah, but how? I want to get my husband to do that. Well, ask him to help with the housework.
Why didn't you ask him? You know, I mean, to me, it doesn't. I mean, to me, the fact if you have to ask, okay, maybe there's some greater problems there, but maybe start there. I mean, I never.
Well, I mean, there's things like you'll ask me to do stuff that maybe I just didn't think about, or I'll ask you for help with something. There's nothing wrong with asking. The problem comes from expecting, right, without communicating, or, you know, just demanding things. I think we can touch on toxic femininity later, but there are things that women do that perpetuate the problem and only make it worse on everyone.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I definitely see this growing toxic masculinity growing really out of control in the evangelical movement. I mean, I see women that are going after other women, and you know, I've seen social posts of where marital rape was excused and things like that, and that is not okay. If you're in a relationship and you're either, I don't care what kind of relationship you're in, if you said no, and then you fall asleep and your husband or boyfriend or whatever starts, you know, doing something with you, that's rape. I really, because you couldn't say, yeah, you already said no. And there was a whole social post about it that I just could not believe the women that were on board telling this poor woman that she was wrong because she was the property of her husband, and it is her job to make sure that his sexual needs are taken care of whenever he wants. That's bullshit.
Well, and I'll just quickly, a little note, it's not an issue only seen within our society or Abrahamic faith-based societies, because if you look, one of the countries that's having the biggest issue with this right now, India, and not shitting on their religion at all, because I'm not saying that this is a religiously drawn behavior, but there is such an amount of sexual violence and assault and aggression towards women in that country. It's epidemic. I mean, it's the proportion of danger women are in there, you can't understate.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's just, I find it really worrisome that we see such an uptick in America.
Yeah.
And we do see it related to the religious ideology that's being pushed, because they're using Bible verses.
Right. Kind of like we talked about corporal punishment being maintained instead of rejected, which is where it should be at this point in our time. Just as human beings, we shouldn't still be beating on children and expecting it to make them better people. We know better now.
Yeah.
And then you see the same thing with spousal abuse. There was a really good documentary. I don't know if we talked about it here. It's called Shiny Happy People. And it goes into, a lot of people know who the Duggars are, the 50 billion kids and counting crap. The Quiverful movement that was out there, and the way that they would abuse children and women in order to progressively move the religious belief forward, and how they thought that it was to go. And it had to do with, you essentially chastised and beat your wife just as you would your child in that belief system. And there is no belief system in the world where that should ever be promoted or acceptable or okay, because we know psychologically you are damaging people by putting your hands on them and expecting it to correct a behavior that only creates more problems.
Yeah, and it's 2023. You know, it is not 1953. Nobody in any relationship should be laying hands on anybody else. You know, I don't care what your magic book from the sky person says. It is not okay to beat your wife or your child. That doesn't make you more of a man. It actually makes you less of a man. And this idea that like the women are supposed to do the work around the house while the man goes out and works. You know what? That's bullshit. I love to cook.
Yeah.
I cook. I do laundry. I vacuum. I mean, you know, you do stuff around the house too. That's what a partnership's supposed to be about. I could not imagine. I could not imagine where I'm in a relationship and I'm like looking, saying, why haven't you vacuumed the floor? And where is my dinner, woman? You know, I honestly don't know how that still happens in this day, other than that they're so brainwashed or indoctrinated in this ideology that that's what they're told from the time they're a child.
Well, and I grew up in a very abusive home. And it's not just abuse that I had to go through. It was abuse I watched happen to other people. And it was a thing that I know I dealt with personally, even as we were, you know, developing a relationship. There was a lot of aggression that I dealt with, a lot of just things that were hard to get through, where you almost can't be in a quiet, normal, stable home without it feeling weird or scary. I know that's hard to explain to people, but that's what you're breeding in those kind of environments. You're causing situations where people will go out in the world and try to have a healthy, productive relationship, and they will be challenged for many different reasons. I can't say that it's because of that, but that created a lot of unhealthy mechanisms that we had to work through, that you had to work through, in order for us to have what we have today.
Yeah, and I would echo what you say. If you haven't seen Shiny Happy People, I would say watch that documentary. You know, it's important for two reasons. One, to understand this toxic masculinity that you see in the world and the things that they will allow men and boys to get away with. But two, it also goes a bit into the political ideology and what's happening and the way that this whole movement has set up to fundamentally try and change our country into a theocracy, which if you've, you know, that's a different subject for a different day. But if you have any inkling that, a theocracy would be a nice thing, go look at any other theocracy and then come back to me and let's talk about that, because none of them are good. They never wind up turning out good. But I would say go watch that documentary if you can, you know, because you will see the sort of abuse that is just accepted.
And perpetuated, you know, by adult. I think the guy in charge of the whole thing, the most egregious thing for me, he wasn't even married. He didn't have his own like actual family. He's going off on this whole behavioral
the guy, not the Doggers, but the guy that was in charge of the Quiverful movement or whatnot.
The one that led that church that Josh Duggar was involved in, with they were trying to essentially redefine what family was and masculinity was and what it looked like. They had that whole, you know, religious umbrella thing where God, the husband, the wife, the children, whatever, and you know, the way that he was trying to reshape what a religious family looked like. But meanwhile, he personally wasn't married, and it got really twisted with the other things that were going on. But it was just so gross when you look at it. They were abusing each other as men. They were abusing young men. They were using, you know, children, women, you know, wives. It was just a whole nasty circle of...
Well, I mean, part of one of the sermons, he brought a child up,
a young man,
on stage, and spanked him, showed the proper way
to love him and spank him at the same time.
Love him and hit him at the same time.
Yeah.
And some idiot parents volunteered their own child to go through this in front
of a crowd. It wasn't a stern
but
being,
it was...
But the fact that it was a mock, you know, teacher, you know, had teaching parents how to... What was it that I can't remember. Where it was like, you know... give them a compliment and spank them at the same time. Like, why? You know?
But you still know, even though it was a mock, you know, and he didn't hit the child hard, he still hit the child, and you still know psychologically, imagine you're in front of that many people being abused. That has to have psychological
I'm sure.
harm to that child.
That's where I think the toxic masculinity really comes from. A lot of people at different points in their life, because they didn't have a good connection with their family or because they were made to feel a certain way, then they go on to overcompensate, and then you get the situation that we are seeing so often now where, you know, maybe men didn't have healthy relationships and they didn't feel like they were able to get the satisfaction they personally wanted, and so now they feel like they can take. And that's not a relationship, or demand, again, not a relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I almost see like two branches of this toxic masculinity. I see the religious ideology of it, and where they use religion and they use, you know, things like that, Bible quotes and all of that in order to, quote unquote, keep their wives in order and all of that. And then I see like the Andrew Tate assholes of the world,
right,
who are teaching incels how to manipulate women, and actually selling like courses on how to take advantage of and how to apply ownership over women. And of course, Andrew Tate and his asshole brother, they're both assholes. They're doing
and the
this,
women that went along with them and helped them.
Yeah, they're doing this for money. You know, they're doing that for money. And then all the incels that are buying into it are doing it because they're all rejects and don't understand. You know, they were told no once too many times in their life, and they emotionally can't handle that. You know, and so then they're going to learn how to treat women like shit and try and apply ownership over the women. So I almost see like there's two branches of this happening now. And maybe these two branches have always been there.
I think so, yeah.
You know, but it's just, I just have such a hard time that we moved past this at one point. We, you know, maybe not totally, but we really did. I remember in the 80s when Murphy Brown, I think it was, you know, that show came out, and oh my God, there was all this upheaval because we've got a show and it's about a single mother and she's working, and holy shit, the family structure. But then the only people complaining about it were the religious people. But then we moved past that, and then it seemed like, okay, the world understood, and we made so many steps forward. And then this evangelical uprise happened here in America, and we've stepped back like 50 years. I mean, we lost all the progress, and women have lost their rights, you know, their place in relationships, their place in the country. It's almost like in some states, women are second-class citizens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the problem is, like you said, when you've got men doing it and they have been fed this line of crap by their parents or their religious leaders or whoever, that's bad enough. And then you have women that are coming up behind them, you know, doing the same thing and forcing the same message out there, and actually telling women, well, if this doesn't make sense to you, if this doesn't make sense, then this is you're wrong.
Right.
You're bad. You're the one that's at fault, and every problem in your relationship can be traced back to you. You know, your job is to appease the husband. Your job is to do what he says. And if you're failing at that and he's having a hard time, that's your fault.
And the most screwed up part about this is when we first got married. Remember that cookbook?
Oh God, yeah.
So we got this cookbook. It was an old cookbook. It was from like the 50s.
Yeah.
But we got the cookbook because it was really good. It was kind of passed down through, I don't know, I guess I got it from my parents or something. It's like one of the good things I got from my parents. But it had great recipes.
Well, it was really cool old stuff in there. Yeah,
like really, really cool old recipes. Things you don't even see anymore, you know. But there was a whole chapter in the very beginning of the cookbook that basically said that if your husband's failing at work, if your husband's having a hard time, it's your fault because you are not providing the right meals or the right environment. And this cookbook will help you to, you know, prepare proper meals.
Be a good housewife.
And even drinks. It went into, like, I mean, it covered everything from desserts to meals to cocktails. I mean, everything was in this book.
Yeah, but if your husband or your kids were failing at life, or if your husband didn't get a promotion, or if your kids got a failing grade, it was because you weren't providing the right environment or food, or you were a bad entertainer. It was a whole list of things like that.
Yeah, and like I said, that was from the 50s, and we moved so far past that. But now, when you look at the language of the language that's coming out of it, and I'm going to especially sort of pick on a little bit the evangelical women.
I'll just say the conservative women who are not all.
I guess they're not all
religious or evangelical, but they definitely seem to have this very twisted notion, this whole "Make America Great Again" crap, where it's like, do you realize that women were taking uppers and sleeping pills just to function in the day?
Yeah, I mean, so that is not making, going backwards is not making America great again, and bringing in toxic masculinity again is not making things great again. I mean, I guess it's great for the men.
Not even really, because, it's not healthy, I don't think, from the outside as not a man. But I don't see how it's healthy to bottle up your feelings, to constantly be aggressive, to constantly be competing with your peers, and just living this very, ugly existence. Where is your friendships? Where are your connection? Where is your happiness? If this is how you focus your life.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. That's not a relationship I would want. And again, that's one of the things that I love about being a Satanist, and I love about having a satanic partner, is that we're on an even playing field.
Yeah,
we are level. We are partners, true partners. If there's an area I'm weak at and you're strong at, you help. If there's an area where you have some weakness or need some help, I'm there to help. And that's the way a partnership should operate. I don't think I would ever want a relationship where I'm like, you did, I worked all day long, and where's my dinner, woman? Or do you have my lunch ready for me to go? I mean, just messed up stuff like that.
No, and I think it takes away from your relationship. I know when you do things for me, it's genuinely because you wanted to do something just to be nice or to be loving or nurturing. Do we always hit the mark, and are we always there for each other, and do we always do perfect? No couple does that, but you do try. You do things all the time with great consideration, in my opinion. And I know, I will often try and do things just to let you know, hey, thanks for this thing, or here's something I know that you really enjoy, and I just wanted, to show you my appreciation. It's just doing things for each other. How can you know whether or not someone's just genuinely showing you love and affection or afraid of you if you're in a different kind of environment?
Yeah, I mean, like, just the simplest of examples is like my morning routine. I get up and I make you a latte.
Yep.
Like every morning, it's just something I do. You don't even ask me.
Nope.
Most days. Sometimes I get busy with meetings and you're like, hey, can I get a coffee?
Yeah, but,
I'm like,
but that's just it. Like, I don't go, where the fuck's my coffee, asshole? This is something, come on, every morning I expect this, this. That's a shitty, that would be a crappy thing for me to do.
Yeah, but it's just something I do. And I do it because it's a way that I can show that I care. I think about you. You're on my mind in the morning, and I know you love your coffee, sometimes maybe more than me.
No.
so
only in the morning.
Hey, I'll make you a latte, using our latte machine or whatnot, but it's just something I do. I don't even really think about it. I just do it.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know. Like I said, I look at what I see being promoted out there, and it makes me somewhat sick in a sense.
It's sad.
Especially because we have 4 daughters.
Right. Yeah, we never had like sons to teach these things to personally, where, you're helping put men out in the world. Hopefully that will help be a better man. But, I think it's just as important when you teach women what is a good thing in a partner and what is a healthy thing in a partner, and how to speak up for yourself and set boundaries, and what does a good man look like by being an awesome example. Like I said, we haven't always been this perfect, awesome couple, whatever, but through work and time and commitment, we found a really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can confidently say that I've given our daughters a good working example of what they should at least expect. Maybe not everything, and there's things that I'm sure I do wrong, but I at least give them enough of an example that if they're with an asshole, they're going to be like, oh, hell no. No. This just, no, sorry. My dad raised me better than that, And,
Well, I mean, like, our oldest has a really awesome partner. Yeah, granted, they're both women, but they have a very strong partnership, and they really work well together, and they work together honestly, and they work through issues, and they talk and communicate well. And our other daughter has from what I know, he's a really great guy.
Yeah.
Every time I've been around them, I really enjoy their relationship and the things that they
they're
showcase.
They're newlyweds,
right?
But still, I genuinely like him.
Yeah, no, he's a really cool person, and he's a strong person. I think they complement each other well, and I really love watching them interact with each other. So it's, granted, that's a newer relationship. I can't say for sure, but it seems like a great one. The other one's like a 10-year-long relationship at this point. And, that's not, well, you guys did that, you're amazing. But by just trying to be decent human beings and showcasing the better and the worst parts of relationship, I think, they learned what does it look like. I definitely didn't have that.
No, I can vouch for the fact that you had no stability and no example growing up.
No, and it sucked because it upsets your ability to be a parent and to know what to look for. I didn't know what to look for.
Yeah.
I just thought, most men were assholes and scary people.
Yeah. Like, when I wasn't an asshole and scary, then, it was like, oh, what's wrong? Something's got to be wrong. Oh, my God, So, yeah, I know that took a little while to kind of work through and stuff. But, that's the thing. We did, but I reinforced the fact that was one of the first things I wanted to do when we got together was, get you as independent as possible. The things that, your mom never taught you how to right. Simple things like financing and stuff like that, because I was like, if I kick it, I want you to be able to take care of our children without feeling the need that you have to have a right. man in there, because that's the way that your mom was. She had to have a man.
Oh yeah, she was like
that toxic sort of.
Yeah, she could not function without like some guy treating her like crap, or else how would she know if she was not crap?
Yeah,
apparently.
And so,
but that's just it. The way that men, I think, not all men, the way that a lot of these toxic men are today, had I met one of those guys, then I'd probably end up in one of Tate's sex farms. I mean, that's the kind of shit, because I wasn't as independent, or those things weren't there yet. And having a partner that truly was able to work with me to develop those skills and to be strong enough to help me be an independent person instead of letting me continue to be a dependent person that relied on them. A lot of men aren't willing to do that. They need to be needed. They
need to be in charge.
Yeah. Well, and to feel secure in knowing, like, well, they can't just leave me because they don't know how to do anything for themselves.
Right.
A lot of very horrible people would find that very appealing.
Yeah. And like you said, you've got the Andrew Tates of the world and all those incels that he's trained. They're out there looking for the women, the daughters that were raised in these sort of families that they've been told the man is right. You do what the man says. The man is the head of the house. The man works. The man is in charge. And you're just setting your children up, your daughters up for possibly horrible.
He would target also women in other countries where there just wasn't a lot of opportunity. It just wasn't a society that focused on women having stronger independent roles, and then he would take advantage of that because they were often just not equipped, and then he would take them under his wing and make them feel special and loved, only to then, dump them in a horrific situation and then manipulate them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a quote from him. He's like, you never mention any of this stuff until after you sleep with her.
Yeah.
Then once you sleep with her, that's when you start to bring this in. And it's like, holy shit. I mean, this is
yeah, it's not just Andrew Tate. That is a thing that a lot of men do.
Yeah. And that's just human trafficking. I mean, at that point, the shit that he was pulling.
Oh, hell yeah. He could call it whatever he wants. He can go rot in fucking hell.
Human trafficking. Yeah, he can rot in hell for all I care. I don't give a shit if he was a kickboxer or whatever the hell he was. He can rot in hell, and I'm going to call him an asshole.
How is he such an insecure little whatever? Yeah, he was a kickboxer, and he's a piece of shit. So
yeah, but unfortunately, there is this. Like I said, the thing that worries me that I see a lot is this ideology is growing out there, and I see it on social media, and I see all of that, and it is very concerning, and it's one area that I really think that the left-hand path, whether it be Satanist or
pagan
whoever else, pagan communities,
atheistic communities,
really need to step up and kind of fight against this toxic masculinity, and if nothing else, then let us be the good shining example
for the most part. I mean, remember,
you're still gonna find assholes.
Yes, everywhere you go, in every group of people, in every gender, there are shitty people.
Yeah. The difference being is in Satanists. I mean, we're Satanists next door, so we're going to talk about Satanism on here. Just because you meet a Satanist doesn't mean the Satanist is going to be nice. There are asshole Satanists out there. There are asshole Satanist men out there that will take advantage of women and all of that sort of stuff. The difference is, the big key difference to me is in the ideology of Satanism is women are empowered to be like, oh, fuck no, and take care of themselves and kick that asshole to the curb. Mm-hmm. Because the woman is empowered with bodily autonomy. She is empowered that consent matters. Mm-hmm. She's empowered that she has power over her own life, her decisions, and her actions, and has the consequences of those actions as well. So it truly is. It puts them on a even playing field. Now, she could still choose to stay in that. Again, that is her choice. But the difference in the ideology is that in Satanism, women are empowered.
Yeah, and it's not that toxic masculinity only affects hetero normative relationships, because definitely there are homosexual relationships where men abuse one another or women abuse one another.
Just trans relationships where
again, whichever, like the man, trans woman, these people can still have unhealthy relationships and be abusive and represent the worst attributes that are assigned to a gender. And that's what toxic masculinity really is. It's not that these are normal male attributes. It's the worst possible attributes that are assigned based on really ridiculous standards that don't truly make any healthy sense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, I mean, I'd almost say to wrap on this, if you're a dude out there, don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. Don't be that asshole. Treat your partner, whether it's a heteronormal or it's an LGBTQ relationship, treat your partner the right way. Don't be that asshole. And for women out there, be empowered. Understand you're on an even playing field and use that power to take control of your situation and find a person and be with a person that's truly going to treat you like their partner.
But also don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
And don't treat your good partner like crap or use these horrible toxic words on them and
mansplaining.
Yeah. It's stupid and it's assholey, and if you wouldn't want a guy to do it to you, don't do it to a guy.
Yeah. It works both ways. It really does, And like you said, we maybe on a future one we'll talk about the other side of this, and I'll shut up for most of that one.
If women want to not have to deal with the toxic man, then it's important that they also not treat men in a toxic way and perpetuate the same thing from the other side.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely wrong for you to tell a man to man up because they're crying, and they have a right to cry. Embrace their feelings. Do you want them to love you and nurture you? Well, then love them and nurture them through the hard times. Encourage them to share their feelings with you. They are allowed to have feelings.
Yeah. I know sometimes you wish I had more feelings.
No, I know you are who you are, and that's just it. You're never going to completely match your partner, and it's so important not to expect them to change to fit your needs. You have to work together to meet one another's needs and expect nothing other than them to try. You can't turn them into somebody else and expect that to happen and to work, because that's not honest.
Yeah. And I joke about that because, with all honesty, with my children, my wife, I'm very much, a caring and a nurturing person. To the person off the street, okay, I might be an asshole, and people might think I'm an
I think
asshole,
you get what you give.
You get what you give.
And in your case, I think you definitely reflect, how a person decides to treat you is probably what they're going to get back.
Yeah. So, but I think we did a pretty good job of covering this. Well,
I don't know. That's something for those of you out listening to let us know. So feel free to send us your feedback, or send us some more insights you might have on the topic of toxic masculinity, or for that matter, anything else that you might think you'd like for us to discuss.
Yeah. And with that, hail Satan.
Hail Satan.